Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Really not going to do much of an announcing here. I'm just going to go ahead and just, start into these questions. Because where we left off that you had pled guilty. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how that took place. How long did it take between the time when you pleaded guilty and when you had to surrender to prison? How long did that take place?
I think that was approximately 60 days. You wait for them to send you a letter.
Okay.
Where you have to report. And I think approximately 6 weeks, 60 days, something like that.
And were you told at that point, you still lived in Idaho, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Boise, Idaho.
Boise. So the closest, were they going to send you to the closest federal prison to where you lived, or did they just have, but how did you end up going to FCI Dublin?
Well, actually, the judge recommended a medical facility in Texas. So because I was still under the care of my cancer. However, the DOJ is the one that decides where you're going to go. The judge can make recommendations, and the lawyer, but they don't have any authority.
Right.
Excuse me. And they ended up telling me I was going to go to the camp. So I thought that's not going to be too bad, no fences.
Right.
But I think because of COVID at the time, no, I'm sorry. Let me take a look. They decided to put me it was a unit where lifers, the worst unit you could be in.
Oh.
It was horrible. The lady there, Michelle West, who I talk a lot about because she saved my life, said, "Miss Hemphill, don't be lying to us. Nobody with the misdemeanor comes into this unit."
Oh,
and I said,
yeah.
So it was a rough unit, very rough.
So do you remember what the day was that you actually had to report? Did you report there? Did you have to report somewhere and then they transported you there? How did that?
Oh, no,
place?
I drove myself there from
Okay.
Boise to California. No, you just show up. That was the hardest thing. Oh God, I was so scared. I was so frightened to go in there. I've never been in jail ever.
Right.
My whole life. So it was like, oh my, only the movies you see, and it's pretty close to those movies. Very rough. There was 95% cartel women, 95%. Okay. One guard at night, the doors are open. You don't know who's going to come in your room, beat you up or whatever. And but right away, I heard the story that the warden had been arrested for relationships with the women, and drugs were in there. It was somehow a big article was out about it. I thought, oh God, where did they put me?
So you spent 60 days in prison, and I'm from what you've told so far, your experiences in there were pretty harrowing.
Yeah, they didn't like me mainly because of Trump and January 6th. And what Michelle West told me, they had plans to put drugs in my room. Now there's 2 people in your room, but you can get an extra charge, 4 years, up to 4 years. And that was so frightening. But she said, I want you to focus on God and not these women. I'll make sure that doesn't happen. And she really looked over me and took care of me. We're working on helping her get out. She needs to get released. Obama was thinking about doing that, but something fell through. I don't know.
But there's a YouTube video now about Free Michelle West, and it's done by Revolt News. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll make sure that we put that in the comment section so that people can know where to go and how to watch that video. So after, do you remember what the date was when you were released from prison?
Well, I think I went in September, October, November. It's hard to remember. It's been so long now. And
Sure.
I still have a little bit of chemo brain, so I have to have things written down in front of me. So no, I don't.
But it was somewhere in October, November of 2022?
Yeah.
Okay. And after you got released from prison, did you attend another rally for Trump?
No. Not until just last month.
Okay. And that was, is that where you met up with Don Jr. and got your picture with Don Jr.?
Yeah, attending these rallies was a totally different agenda.
Okay.
Not to be a part of the rally, to be a part of being able to ask a question. So
Okay.
I don't go around telling you what I think they think. So I could say, hey, I asked them a question and this was their response. So I had a
Okay.
purpose. It wasn't to be a part of their rally or
Right.
go there to hear what they have to say. But because it was all here in South Carolina, why not
Sure.
go see how they answer my questions?
So, do you mind sharing with us that experience on what happened on that day?
Yeah, with Don Jr., he was going to be speaking. And then
Uh-huh.
I woke up that morning and there was a little text. I was invited to a private lunch, and wishful thinking, I thought, oh, they know it's me and they want me there for some reason. I thought, that's great. Well, that's just wishful thinking. It could have been anybody. They pick a number out of a hat. But I went there and he showed up and he talked for a minute or so. And then he said, let's take pictures. So we all took pictures. And so I went up to him. I figured he's going to recognize me and say, get that lady out of here, because his father had made a comment about me, right? That's what got me out there on CNN. So I figured he's going to recognize me and say, get her out of here. And he didn't. And so I turned to him and I said, I'm Pam, and I'm a January 6th defendant. All he said was, oh, I'm sorry. And then turned around and just ignored me like I was nothing. You would think he would say, oh, do you got a minute? Tell me about that experience. Something, right?
Right.
No,
Right.
it was like I was like a fly. He was trying to get rid of me. And so I went up to him a second time after he walked around a little bit. And I thought, maybe he'll start remembering me. And then I just asked him a question. How do you feel about your father going to prison? He says, I don't think that'll happen. They just want our money. And he still didn't recognize me. And he still didn't want to even spend a minute with me.
Okay.
So there you go. They don't care about the J6 defendants at all.
And that's the point that I wanted to bring to light, or to shed some light on, is, you made a comment to me in one of our conversations that basically you were being used, and you were being used by the Trump family and by the Trump organization, the Trump campaign, for something, in that they intended to use you to be scapegoats.
Yes, this poor 69-year-old woman with cancer who did nothing wrong. She was shoved into the Capitol, this innocent person that the DOJ is weaponized against the January 6ers. And I'm an example of that. And
Right.
that's not true. That's not true. It was illegal to be there that day. Nobody was supposed to be inside that Capitol. Nobody's a victim that day. I'm not a victim. I pleaded guilty because I was guilty. I mean, it's not like I intended to break the law, but that's no excuse,
Sure.
But there's a long story behind what happened, but still, no, I didn't like they were using me to make people believe the DOJ is weaponized against us. And that's not true. If you broke the law, you broke the law. It's just that simple.
So let's backtrack just a little bit. At what point, you talked the previous time that you were on with us and we had the conversation. You talked about how you were involved in the MAGA movement. You were videotaping. You were part of the women's group in Idaho. You made a lot of contributions to the MAGA movement. But at what point did you have the epiphany? What point did you have that you just was it a lightning bolt? Was it something over time? How did you determine that you needed to stop supporting Trump and stop supporting the MAGA movement?
Well, actually, even while I was involved, pay attention to those red flags. And
Okay.
people don't, and I didn't, because of the gaslighting.
Right.
I would always be the one asking questions, and they would come at you and say, don't be listening to that news. Don't be, that's a lie. That's propaganda. Okay, so, and you're talking to people with 2 PhDs, right? And senators. So you're believing them. Actually, for me, when I got out of prison, I started the first January 6th Twitter space. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a space where we all came in to help the J6 defendants. And that was going well for about 6 weeks until I came across a case. Gateway Pundit put out that, oh gosh, I have a blank spot for his name right now. Ryan Samsel had lost an eye in jail, at the DC jail. And I thought that can't happen, even though I didn't like what he had done. He was the one that Epps whispered in his ear. He was wearing a red cap and he pushed the barriers and he knocked down a female officer. So I wasn't really into wanting to support him, but I didn't like the idea that somebody lost their eye. Well, I got a hold of his attorney, and that's not true. He did not lose his eye.
Okay.
They lied, but his gift send and go went up to $40,000 and more that day. And I realized they're grifting, they're lying about everything. So I started researching some more things, found out they lied again about the doors being open. They were not, some of them had admitted to opening the doors themselves, and it just started snowballing. And then I started my own J6 gaslighting space. And that's when sedition hunters and a lot of researchers came in and started helping me debunk all their lies. So it was a gradual.
So yeah, you didn't have just a lightning bolt epiphany. It was an epiphany that came over time.
Well, it is like that, but for every incident, it varies for each person. Some may, like when Trump did this Bible thing recently,
Yes.
that might do it for some people. Everybody's going to have something happen to them where they'll go, oh no, that's kind of going over the line here. And that was my going over the line. You don't lie and make up things that your eye's been taken out just to get money. I mean, come on. And I think with Trump, that's what's happening with a lot of people. They're starting to recognize it. I know it's difficult because how can you want to support a man that cheated on his pregnant wife? It's like, and they're claiming to be Christians. I mean, but for each person, it'll be different.
Sure. So in kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of where you are at now with your activism, you do believe that MAGA is a cult. You've already mentioned that just a few minutes ago.
Absolutely, and it's so difficult to explain that to people that are MAGAs, because you've always looked in history of a cult was generally a religious movement, but then Christian nationalist is a Christian political movement, though. And so it's it's hard at first to say, oh, that's a cult. That was really a cult. Yes, because the leader has you listening to nobody but them. Fake news. They're really they're after me, but they're really after you. But I stand in the way. That makes him a savior.
Right.
Because without Trump, they're going to come after me. So he set himself up to be a god, like a savior for them.
In part of the problem with that is he's working on people's emotions and enticing people based on this emotional stamina that he has, or this emotional approach to get people to continue to stay on with him. And you talked about gaslighting and feeding that lie, but it's an internal lie that a person already has with them, and he's building upon that to make them buy in deeper and deeper into his philosophy. So can you talk about, how do you recommend other people engage with MAGA folks, or how do you recommend that we deal with the current MAGA movement and persuade Trump followers, that, all right, if they don't want to follow Biden, they have got problems with Biden, or they got problems with Democrats, that's fine, but they need to abandon Trump. How do we get them to do that?
Yeah, it's all you could do is plant the seeds with facts and
Right.
start off by asking them, what are the things that you find that Trump is doing for this country, and then have the facts ready. But see, he's hijacked their brains so deep. How can a man be selling a Bible and the next day put a picture of Biden tied up on a truck? I mean, they're not seeing all this.
Right.
The hypocrite stuff that he's doing is not what's best for this country. How do you convince these people? Well, I think what's happening, what I've noticed, there are some Republicans coming around now, a lot of them. They don't want Trump in there. And it's very difficult, because it has to be a one-to-one thing. You can't really do it in media per se. They have to trust you a little bit and know you, and you have to have some of the facts ready to explain to them and share, especially about Project 2025. It's not about voting for Biden this year. Some of his policies, we don't agree on every policy Biden has out there. However, we know that he's for democracy, and
Right.
They are going to take that away from us. You're not going to have any democracy. If Trump gets into office, he's going to be a dictator day one, and he's not going to stop. And Project 2025 is going to make sure of that.
Which brings us to our next question. Our next topic is really to talk to you and have you talk to us about your understanding of Project 2025 and how detrimental that will be to the democracy and the constitutional republic that we have, form of government that we have in the United States.
Well, I'm really not an expert in explaining Project 2025.
Okay.
It's 920 pages. It's developed by the Heritage Foundation, which, they want to turn this into a Christian nation. And I mean that 100%. So what that means is the laws will be based on their Christian beliefs. Number one thing is they're going to make sure that if birth control is gone, all women that want to have abortions could be arrested. There's so many things, pieces. They're going to come into all the, the 4 pillars of government, and dismantle them and change them. And their policies, if you're not going to go along with Trump and their policies, they're going to fire you. There's not going to be a process. They're just going to say you're out. They're going to discriminate you. We're all in trouble listening to all their policies and what they want to implement. Actually, I tell people, if you really want to see the roots of this, go watch a documentary on Netflix called The Family, because actually this is where it all started back in 1930, but it started actually in 1973. But it's frightening. It's very scary. I know it. I'm not good at teaching it like this. So that's why I tell people on YouTube, there's so many great videos that you can go listen to for 15 minutes. Just get a sense of what they're wanting to do. So I want you to get scared enough to vote, even though you're on the fence of who to vote for. You have to vote Democrat this year. Otherwise, because what you're looking at is these megas, and you have to wrap this around your head because it's the fact, are following Hitler. And I'm not kidding, because that Project 2025 is a Hitler playbook. I mean, it's scary. All the gay rights will be gone. gun laws. They want all the teachers to be carrying guns. So I don't have a little bullet points in front of me right now, but look it up. I hope it scares you enough to go vote blue, because I think even Republicans will be against it. And personally, I've gone around the community at the gas station, my friends, family. Do you know about Project 2025? And they said, no, I don't. And I said, oh my God. So a few came back and said, yeah, Pam, you're right. That's more scary than what you told me. And I said, yeah, it's very frightening. And it doesn't matter who's going to be president. This is a Republican Party agenda. So it's very important to research it and learn more about it and tell people about it.
Which brings us, and you just touched on it, you just mentioned it, about your support for President Joe Biden. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you support Joe Biden?
Because he's for democracy. He cares about people. In fact, what happened, I did vote in the primaries here for Joe Biden. And I may as well tell you now, because I've already decided that I am going to change parties to be a Democrat. I should have always been a Democrat. When you're in that cult, you don't see the racism. You don't see a lot that I'm seeing today. And I think they're more open about it now because they would hide it. So yeah, I'm going to go change my parties. I'm going to be I should have always been a Democrat. Democrats want freedom. I don't know if this makes sense to you, but it's a lack of self-centeredness that Democrats have. They're not thinking of just what's good for them. They think what's good for everybody. And I like that. Yes. Okay, I'm not for abortion, but I don't have a right to tell you not to have abortion, right? That's up to you. That's your decision. And it's between you and your doctor. And who to love, that's none of my business, a lot of things. I like the majority, the democracy. We vote, we make these laws, but they're not based on what I think's right according to the Bible. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Got to keep those things separate. You can believe in God or not believe in God. That's the freedom of religion.
We're kind of getting down to the last few questions that we have left to ask you. I want to, Scott, if there's anything that you want to ask, just step in at any time. But
I do want to just go back to something that Pam said a moment ago. And I agree with you, Pam, that it's systemic change cannot be preached through the media. It's got to be one-on-one. But honestly, when you were in the thick of the MAGA movement, when you were encased in it, surrounded by it, wouldn't it have been hard for you at that time to hear the truth that now what you're telling other people?
Yeah, in fact, but I can only relate it to my experience. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober 44 years. And when I was coming around and drinking, they would plant seeds with me, the truth, facts about my illness. And I never forgot it. I got mad. I didn't want to go back. But the same thing with MAGA. They have to hear the facts and some truths. They don't like it. They want to push you away and say, oh, I don't care if Trump's cheated on his wife. Yes, they do. In fact, later it'll hit them. So it's important that we're honest with them. But I'm really grateful for people that did come around. It wasn't that easy with Trump. I was okay with going up against the J6 lies that they were doing, the J6 defendants. But when it started coming to Trump, I was a little resistant. But little by little, they kept bringing these racist. And I said, he's racist? I didn't know he was racist. I would have sworn he's not racist. He's racist. So it's really helpful though. If people just keep saying, yeah, Pam, he's racist. Yes, he doesn't care about you. He's a narcissist. I think that's important because sometime down the road, something will happen and they'll go, I remember they said that.
Very well put. Thank you for that.
In your discussion there, it kind of leads me to the next question about, do you have a desire to testify before a congressional committee? And what would you testify to?
Oh, absolutely. I wrote a letter to Congress. It's only a 2.5, 3-page letter. letting them know that we have to come together with facts and stop the lying, and that, I took responsibility for that day, and it's important that we all take responsibility for that day and stop covering up for the J6 defendants and for Trump. And so I'm hoping, I don't know if you got a chance to read my letter, but it's about coming together and with facts and truth. Now let's stop all this division that's going on and support the Capitol Police, because they are the heroes today. The J6 defendants are criminals. They're not victims. They're not hostages. That's a disgrace to even say that.
So Pam, what do you wish to tell the congressional committee when you're able to go testify before in Washington, D.C.?
Okay, I have a letter here that I'll read to you.
Okay.
It starts off with a quote. The ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of all. John F. Kennedy. My name is Pam Hemphill. I'm a cancer survivor, a retired substance abuse counselor. I owned and operated a state-approved DUI treatment center. I am a recovering alcoholic with 44 years sober in last August. I was in the crowd at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. I would appreciate my story being entered in the public record to attempt to right the wrongs I have done, and to hopefully provide the American people with facts that sadly, too many of us did not know when we arrived in the morning on January 6th. I was charged for my participation in the events that day. I pleaded guilty and I served 60 days in prison. I am not a victim of the government. The Justice Department was not weaponized against me. I was a participant who broke the law. I would like to do my part to contribute to the collective healing that our nation needs after the events on January 6th, as well as address the constant gaslighting perpetrated by those who refuse to accept accountability for their part in what happened that day, and that continues to go on across America. As I mentioned, I'm a retired substance abuse counselor. For over 28 years, I provide assistance to support people struggling with addiction. As a person in recovery myself, my programming involves making direct amends, which means more than just words or simple apologies. It takes action that demonstrates a new way of life. It requires acknowledging and aligning our values to our actions by admitting wrongdoing and then living by those principles. My speaking out, with the facts has come at great risk to my personal safety and well-being. But I believe that speaking out about what I learned only serves those who continue. I'm sorry, I got to reread that. But not to speak out will only serve to continue to gaslight or lie in order to protect their own interests. I also want others who have felt betrayed or misled to know that they are not alone. We have an opportunity to accomplish what we thought we came to the Capitol, my voice, on January 6th by admitting our wrongs and sharing the facts. After I retired, it became a hobby of videotaping and documenting political events for the local women's mega groups. When I attended these rallies, I felt welcomed. I felt like I was part of a group of people who truly cared about the country and the Constitution. Looking back, I realized much of what I was being told was propaganda. Things like the Democrats were trying to turn us into a communist nation, or that the left wanted to do away with the Constitution. The gaslighting caused a lot of fear, and that fear kept me engaged in what I thought we were saving our country and protecting the Constitution. I was deceived. On January 6th, the betrayal of my trust and loyalty to the movement was not yet realized by me. It wasn't until much later I would understand that those people who I believed were patriots had been using my fear. The desire to be a patriotic American was weaponized against the Capitol, the rule of law, and against the peaceful transition of power. The events on January 6th did not match the ideas I believed I was supporting. I feel ashamed that I couldn't see it at the moment. Part of my motivation to write this letter is to set the record straight about the events leading up to January 6th and the narrative that is being pushed by others who attended and who facilitated its inception. Mainly, I want to thank the Capitol Police officers for their heroic and patriotic efforts that day. You see, I'm 70 years old. I have just gone through cancer surgery a few weeks before January 6th, and in the crowd, I was pushed down. My head was stepped on, my shoulder pulled out, my knee cut, and my glasses smashed. The Capitol Police saved my life that day, and I want them to know how truly grateful I am to them and how deeply sorry I am for what happened and how they continue to be treated bad to this day. The Capitol Police were not causing the violence. They did not start the violence. They protected the Capitol, the people inside the Capitol, and even rioters like me from the violence that day. They deserve our gratitude, acknowledgement, and their sacrifice, and their continued scars that they carry still to this day. Aside from the events on the Capitol on January 6th, the danger to this country still exists. The constant gaslighting, the propaganda that continues to fan the flames of grievance, hate, and anger towards our fellow Americans, Democrats, President Biden, and the federal government must stop. If we are to be patriots who love this country, we must stand up and speak out with the facts. That includes elected officials who claim they demand facts and evidence, but refuses to operate in the same fact-based reality. I'm hoping this letter can serve as a part of my amends to the country. I believe there are others like me out there who see that the gaslighting is doing to our country. I hope they join me in pushing back against the lies. We need more truth tellers, fact finders, and courageous leaders who are willing to admit when they're wrong and speak up about the truth. I've learned so much in my journey since January 6th. I continue to learn. I am grateful to be able to share my experience with you, my fellow Americans. I ask that everyone work together to build a more perfect union. In order to build this idea, we must establish a foundation of facts. If we do this, we can help this country heal. Stop the spin. Thank you.
Very well said. I'm very impressed with your comments, Pam. And as we close,
what kind of reaction did you get from members of Congress, Pam?
Nobody's read it. I heard that Raskin had read it. Some journalist said that he saw it on my page on Twitter and has read it. But no, I haven't got in front of him yet. I'm hoping, I can get there, or at least have them put it on record. From one J6 defendant that sees it now for what it really is. And maybe these other Republican people, because they're pushing all this propaganda and lies. It's all lies about January 6th. I was there, and they keep wanting to say the officers started it. No, I was there. I got the videos. They're just standing there. They're peaceful,
And Johnson, Speaker Johnson, he's saying now that, the people that were there were just tourists, just walking.
No. They broke the windows. They got inside and they came and opened the doors. There's 11 cases of court records where the defendants themselves admitted to opening the doors. So I have been able to debunk everything they throw out there. They're lies. And we need to get to Congress with another person I know that has all the facts, all the receipts, and say this is, and show we need to stop this spin, these lies that are going out there. Because I don't know, facts stand for themselves,
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a tourist day. No, it was closed to the public.
So as we close down our conversation, I want to thank you for taking the time that you have spent with us. We've gotten to know you really well. And like I told you before, at some point, I hope that we meet in person. I just want to be able to shake your hand. I would like to embrace you in a hug. I don't know whether that would be appropriate or inappropriate, but as you would allow, I want to show you my gratitude.
Yeah, thank you. I'm hoping if there's any way there's any ideas, anything I could do to help the Democrat Party, I would love to do that. I want to be of service somehow. It's one thing to
Get that
talk.
registration changed right away.
I'm on that. I'm on that.
So can you help us
I'm
close?
excited.
So in order to help close this down, would you help us by, talking to us about a call to action for all Democrats, independents, and citizens who still support our current form of government, the U.S. Constitution? What do you say to everybody at this point? How do we, how can we move on, and how can we improve this conversation?
Well, the number one thing is learn all you can about Project 2025. And I kind of say this in a joking way. I want everybody very scared about Project 2025 so they will go vote. Everything we want to do is to motivate people to vote. I was listening to some college students that were on the fence. They don't know to vote for Biden or Trump. And it's like, no, like I was thinking of getting together a little pamphlet, go to the universities and pass them out just so they could go learn about it, not to convince them who to vote for. But this information is not getting out there enough. I think Biden finally put something on his campaign about it, because once you see how serious the facts about our democracy will be gone, I think it could motivate people. Hopefully it scares me to death.
That gives us a perfect opportunity to let our viewers know that the Project 2025 collective, I'll just put it that way, it's more of a manifesto, is available for you to read at project2025.org. Yeah. That's project2025.org.
Thank you. Yeah.
And it is very scary, when you start reading through it line by line and get into the context of what they're actually saying. You're absolutely correct. It is an absolute dismantling of our federal government, and we need to get that information out. So, Pam, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, I just want to mention his book.
Oh, please go ahead.
He's running for Congress. Harry Dunn?
Yes.
In Maryland. Oh, I cried through the whole thing. But I just want to mention his book, and do all you can to support those that are, the Capitol Police. And we can't help them enough.
Right. Well, we can't thank you enough for, again, taking the time that you've spent with us now over 2 days to talk to us about your experiences and what you've been through, and the change of mind that you've got in your personal beliefs. So, you are an inspiration, and we really appreciate you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Any way I can help, please let me know.
All right.
And all the best to you. Stay well and keep shouting from the rooftops.
I am. I've got Germany coming out here. All different countries. They're so afraid.
Talk to us just a little bit before we leave. Talk to us just a little bit. You've been approached by Canada, by Australia, Germany, France.
They're all scared, frightened. They are scared because of NATO. We know if Trump's in office, these countries are in danger, and they're scared, and they're asking me the same things you're asking me. What can we do? Well, we got to motivate people to learn about Project 2025 to go vote. We have to vote blue this year. Forget about your little issues and policies with Biden. The Democrat Party still overweighs all that little things that Biden's trying to work through right now. But they're scared. In fact, they're coming here. They're going to put me in a little documentary. We're doing everything we can to get this message out there. We don't have much time. We only got 7-8 months.
Right. Yeah, the clock is ticking, and we don't have time to sit around. And one of the call to actions that you admonished me from the very first time that we'd had a conversation, you said, Kevin, you're not doing enough.
Yeah, they're not pushing back enough. We need more people out there speaking, because Republicans have people out there. Mike Flynn, they're out there talking, and we need to be talking for Biden. More people that are are known, like Nancy Peroski and no names. I'd go out there and speak if I had somebody with me,
Sure.
and explaining things. But yeah, there's not enough. I would love to go listen to some of these people, but Democrats are different. I've noticed they kind of keep everything on their shoulder,
Sure.
But we have to push back heavier and harder. It's so, our democracy, we're going to be in a communist country for real.
Well, thanks again so much for being with us on Coffee with Democrats. You've got an inspiring message, and I hope people will spend time listening to your comments with us and be able to share those with others. So again, thank you so much, Pam, for being on Coffee with Democrats.
Oh, and nice meeting both of you. What a blessing. Okay.
You as well.
Thank you.